Hey friends, how's it going? Welcome to the first and only video lecture for musical theater history. Well, this year anyway. So, first things first, your quiz, and we can talk about it. No, I'll give you the answer now. Here's the quiz for today. So, if you're keeping a list, as you should be, here's the question. What is the most revived musical on Broadway? What musical has been revived more than any other? Bum, 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 bum. Don't be using your phone. Put that down, Nicholas. Brenda, I see you too. Put it down. All right. The answer is the most revived musical with 7 revivals is Porgy and Bess. Close behind it is Three Penny Opera with 6 revivals. And then, anybody? Savannah, you probably know this already. Guys and Dolls, 5 revivals. Impressive, right? All right, I want to go on to some announcements, just like regular class. Raisin Sun opens this week, and so, of course, you can't use it for your paper for this class, but I'll give you extra credit. Remember, it only runs this weekend, so don't miss it. Auditions for Penny Seats. Penny Seat Theaters are this weekend as well. They are Sunday from 7 to 10 and Monday from 7 to 10. The callbacks are Sunday the 19th at 6 o'clock. And for all the criteria and a little description of the 2 shows, you can go to pennyseats.org. Pennyseats.org. I'm directing and choreographing Peter and the Starcatcher there. So I would love to have you all come and audition. Okay? What's next? Oh, reminder. We go to see Sing Happy this week. Next week at Connor O'Neill's Irish Pub. 7:15 call, 7:30 show. Let me say that again. 7:15 call, 7:30 show. Do not be late. The address and everything is on the syllabus, and make sure that you allow plenty of time for finding a place, parking, blah, 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 blah. And you know what, friends? Dress nice. Look good. Gay chic, business casual, whatever you want to call it. Because remember, you're representing EMU Theater, and me, okay? So make us look good. Oh, yeah. And if anybody acts the fool, I will kill you. Don't embarrass us. All right. I love you. Next, here is an opportunity. It's approved. If you want to write your paper for this class, you may. But if you have another class with me, you can't double dip. But it's actually a piece that I'm working on. It's called Kiss Me Kate, Cold Porter, and Fosse. What else do you want? The musical version of Taming of the Shrew. It's at Hillsdale College, which is true, it's a hall. It's about an hour and a half away, but ticket price, free. Just right, free. It opens Wednesday, March 1st, and plays through that Saturday. Each of those evening performances is an 8 o'clock curtain, and then the final performance is on Sunday, March the 5th at 2 p.m. Again, that's Wednesday, March 1st through Saturday the 4th at 8 p.m. and then Sunday, March 5 at 2 p.m. It's pretty good, I have to say. All right, little reminder. Next week is the Sondheim lecture. Woohoo, my favorite. And we'll also talk about Sing Happy, see what you thought. Kander and Ebb are my second favorite composing team right after Sondheim, of course. And we'll try to get more of your, this is my favorite musical theater piece that you want to share with the class. We'll try and get some of those in. And then finally, we will review for the midterm. Keep in mind then that next week is break, so we don't have class, obviously. And then the following Thursday after break is midterm, so you'll have break to review, and we'll do a little review in class. Last thing before I start talking, we will, the way that I'm going to work the guest lecturers into our midterm, I have their notes, Ryan's and Peruse's notes, and I'm going to choose 8 to 10 questions from their lecture, and that's what will be on the midterm, okay? 8 to 10 questions from each of their lectures. And, okay, once again, February 23rd is winter recess. Don't come to class. Midterm is March 2nd. Okay, on to the lecture. Wait, I'm looking in the wrong place. Okay. So, originally I was going to do game changers for this lecture, as in shows or performers, but I rethought that. I thought it was silly because I'm going to have you guys do presentations on game changers, and I don't want to step on anybody's toes. So I decided to do game changers of a different sort. First of all, I'm going to go way back in time, to 1983. There was a talent show, a nationally televised talent show, and it was kind of the first in that exact style. And it's the granddaddy of everything that came after, of America's Got Talent, of Britain's Got Talent, So You Think You Can Dance, The Voice, blah, 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 all those. This one was the granddaddy, and it was called Star Search. Star Search, 1983. And you're saying, why the hell are you telling me this? What does it matter? Well, it actually changed for several years the way that musicals were written, that roles were written. Because here's what happened on Star Search. For the most part, the people who won the most were sort of people who were vocal anomalies, people who had amazing voices just because that's how they were born, right? It became about who could sing the highest, the loudest, and the longest, and about who could riff the craziest. And the crowd would, go crazy, which made the performers want to go even higher and louder, for longer and riffier. So it kind of fed, on itself. Well, as most trends do, this trend filtered into Broadway. And it resulted in several years of shows that were written for these kinds of folks to sing higher, louder, longer, riffier. And the bottom line is, it just wasn't sustainable. In other words, the human voice is not meant to sing in those extremes 8 times a week for months and months and months and months. And I've got some very specific examples for you. And these are firsthand, friends, because I was there. So, hold on, let me flip my page. So, as many of you know, and I'll advocate again, be a bartender. because it'll save your ass over and over and over. So I was a bartender at Katz on Broadway at the Winter Garden. And Liz Calloway, I'm sure many of you know her. She's a Broadway vet. She's got one of the most beautiful voices ever. She and her sister sing together. They are both voice teachers. Their mother is a voice teacher. Uh, she's got it. She knows how to do everything, and she knows how to do it the right way. She was playing Grizabella, and every single performance, when we got to the to Memories, you know, the big Grisabella's big song, touch me, it's so easy to do, you know that one, the big high belty note. When she first went in, I was like, this is awesome. She is great. She's the real deal. And then I don't know. I'll say 6 or 7 weeks after going in, I started noticing a subtle change because I would be, you know, outside of the house, and so I started going in and standing by the sound board and the light board in the back of the house, and I started noticing that when we got to that point, when the orchestra would swell, da 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 da, you would slide her microphone all the way up, maxed out, so that she didn't have to belt. Touch me, it's so easy. Well, you know, she sounded better than that. But I'm just saying that after a while, even someone as well trained as she, your voice ain't meant to do that. Yeah? So that's how they worked, making that happen. Otherwise, she'd have been out. Another example of Phantom of the Opera. Both Michael Crawford and Sarah Brightman, their voices began to, you know, get shot because not only is it a long show, it's 2 hours and 45 minutes, they're doing it eight times a week, you know. So they were the first show to start pre-recording all of the higher stuff. So all those runs that Christine does in the song "The Phantom of the Opera," and especially that big, you know the one I'm talking about. Don't pretend like you don't. It's pre-recorded, and the even the Phantom's stuff, the higher stuff that he would float in his falsetto, it's pre-recorded. Because males, as you know, when our voices start to get shot and we've overused them, first thing to go is the falsetto. You can't get up there into your head voice. So they pre-recorded everything and lip synced. You know what I mean? Here's my favorite example. When I was bartending at, I think it was the Imperial on Broadway. Anyway, it's where Miss Saigon was, because for many years Miss Saigon was my very favorite score. I loved it. But many roles in that, especially the role of Chris, the GI, the male lead, is written so high. And again, it's a long show. It's 2 hours and 45 minutes. And they were going through Chris's like underwear, or like people should go through underwear. And you know who I'm talking about. So it was just replacement after replacement after replacement, because these guys were tenors. They were legit tenors. They couldn't sustain that much singing in that high of a tessitura for very long at all. And I remember this one time they were had just put a new Chris in, and this guy was a Broadway veteran. I mean, he'd been around and he had chops and he was really awesome. I was shutting down the bar. The show had started, and he was singing, um, what is it? Why Does Saigon Never Sleep at Night, I think. And suddenly, his voice just stopped, and the orchestra went on. And as I say, I knew that score backwards and forwards, so I knew something was up. So I ran in to the house, and he was just standing there on a Broadway stage, just standing there, because he had been put in so quickly with so little prep, as many of them were, that he lost his place in the song. He didn't know where he was. So the orchestra actually had to stop. The conductor had to say where he was in the lyrics, and they took it back and started again. I mean, can you think of a more mortifying thing? But that's what it was. And again, he wasn't in for very long because Boche was shot. There are two others that I could think of. Oh, Jersey Boys, right? You know, there's the one character who's nominated for a Tony Award. I can't remember if he won or not. You know, all those high songs. He was the highest part for all the songs. And it was kind of a stink on Broadway because he was nominated for Best Actor. But backstage, there was somebody on a mic doubling him because the human voice isn't built to sing that high for that long, that many times a week. Yeah. And then the most recent is Our Lady Idina Menzel in Wicked. She is one of those anomalies. I'll go ahead and say it. She's born with those natural pipes. I mean, she studies and everything as well, but you know, she's got it. And I saw Wicked with her 3 times. The first time, she sounded exactly like the cast recording. Glorious. Second time, everything was in tune and pitch, but she was a little raspy. And then about 3 months later, I went in, and I'm sorry, I couldn't tell you how long the show itself had been running at this point, but she was missing pitches left and right, and the big defying gravity note put flat as a pancake. And she's, you know, the real deal. And if any of you saw the Tonys that year, you saw the same thing. They did the defying gravity number, and she did it, man. So, all that to say, that was a game changer, starting way back in 1983 with Star Search, and then Idol, and heretofore. And so now we've scaled back from doing that as much. But here's the interesting thing. As you all know, Cats is coming back. Miss Saigon is coming back. So I'm wondering if they will have reorchestrated some of that music to make it more sustainable, more maintainable for their actors. We shall see. We shall see. Another game changer that I wanted to mention. I know many of you love Disney. You love Disney. I get it. But I call them an evil empire. And again, I was there. So here's what happened. In the early 90s, 42nd Street was like a crazy, awesome wasteland. It was nothing but drug dealers and prostitutes and peep show houses. Seriously, that's all it was. You couldn't walk down the street without probably getting robbed or beaten, whatever. It literally was that horrible. And Disney came in and partnered with the city of New York, again, early 90s, and said, we will give you money and we will clean up 42nd Street and we're going to mount some shows. And so, as you know, they did 42nd Street, I'll say 10 years later, maybe even less, looked like a glorious street at any other town in the world. Clean, everything new, sidewalks, refurbished theaters everywhere. Lion King is playing by this to sold out capacity crowds. Beauty and the Beast is playing. They refurbished the New Victory, which, as you know, is one of the only theaters on Broadway that is dedicated to children's theater. And, you know, things are going well, and everybody's like, Disney, Disney, we're not worthy. And so here's what happened. And again, I know this firsthand because I was dating the original Simba for a little more than a year. Anyway, his name was Jason Reyes, but it wasn't really it. His name was Jason Rothenberg. He just changed it because they thought Reyes was cooler. Anyway, what happened was Disney went to Equity. You know, that's our professional union, Actors Equity. They went to Equity and said, hey, we're no longer going to pay the actors in our show equity minimum. And Equity was like, what? You have to. It's the rule. You have to pay them and you have to pay the principals more. And Disney said, okay, then we're going to pull Lion King off Broadway and we're going to pull Beauty and the Beast off Broadway and we're going to withdraw all our funding. So, of course, Equity had no choice but to let them cut wages. So at that point, the Lion King in The Lion King was making less than chorus members of any other Broadway show at the time. And I think at that time, Broadway minimum was $18.35 a week. And, you know, certainly principals made way more than that. And here are arguably the two most successful shows on Broadway at that time, where the leads are making less than the chorus of any other show. And the second way or second reason that Disney's an evil empire, I had dear friends who were costume crew, makeup crew, set crew. And Disney began replacing everything with inferior materials. My friend costumer used to dog sit for he and his partner all the time, and he would complain nonstop. He had to spend most of his time repairing because costumes. Hold on, it's Ryan Lewis. Hold on 1 second.